notes, that's fine, right? You'll still see me.
We should if they're. Oh, hello everybody.
Hello.
Welcome
Hello.
to Coffee Class. This week we are doing Election by Alexander Payne, and yeah, figured we should introduce us in case it's someone first time.
Good idea.
God, I've never learned the pointing.
Wait.
That's Adam. I'll just do it in the direction I figure it out. Adam, Avi,
Hello.
John,
Alexie.
and you, Alexie. Yeah, everybody.
Yeah, it's harder than you would
That was a
think.
mess. We'll get better.
I'll learn the
We got the
pointing.
logo.
We need to rehearse our introductions. My
Oh
goodness.
God, wait, I forgot to do this.
What? What'd you forget to do?
That was perfect.
Yeah, I forgot.
I love that. I love that.
All right.
All right.
Yeah.
So John is on vacay.
Do you think everybody's kind of here? What?
They're trickling in still. I was going to say that John's on vacay, which is the reason for the new background.
Yeah, exactly. I'll be back home next week. Yeah. And
are we ready to jump into Election?
I'm ready.
Do it.
Should I? Yeah.
Cool.
Okay. Let me just go to my notes here. So.
Oh, John, you do get blacked out when you go to your notes.
Oh, that's a bad thing. Well, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. But
Okay. Let me do this, and I'll be brief, and then we'll. Oh shoot! I was afraid that would happen. Sorry, it's not my normal computer.
We'll put us on the screen so people.
Put
can
you
see
guys on the screen so again. Yeah.
We're doing well this week.
We'll get reaction shots.
Yeah, I'm in voiceover. Okay, so Election, Alexander Payne. We need to get back to this in a moment because Adam said he was surprised that I like this film. I think I know why, but I want to hear more. I actually love this film, and I love Alexander Payne. A lot to say. I'm going to spend. I'll do my usual stuff with what's going on in the film, what elements of story are happening, but there's a lot to be said, and I think it's a good time for us to watch this kind of film because Alexander Payne is a very unique director. I find him to be a very bold, very brave director. He takes incredible chances, and he has a very, very distinct voice. That's one of the reasons that I think his films work and I like them so much. He breaks the rules a lot. So I'm just going to go through some beats pretty quickly that I think are really amazing. One of which Adam actually just mentioned. I think it's maybe the first scene of the film. If not, it's one of the first handful of scenes. He's throwing away stuff in the refrigerator that's gone bad, and he dumps what looks to be anyway like a carton of Chinese food on and hits the floor, and the maintenance man sees him. It appears to be a throwaway moment. The maintenance man sees him. We identify. Payne is very careful that we make sure that we identify the maintenance man. We know he is. And again, right up front, Payne says to you, this is my film. This is my world. I'm breaking the rules. I'm doing a lot of stuff that's not necessarily conventional. And of course, one of those things is he goes right to voiceover. Not one, not two, but 3 voiceovers from 3 different characters. It's just kind of incredible. This guy is a brilliant indie film director. Studios, I mean, everybody should be in love with him. Everybody should be hiring him. Studios are a little wary of him because he does his own thing. Also, early on, we meet Jim, the teacher, Matthew Broderick, and he is, for all the obvious reasons, I hope, he's talking about morals and ethics. It's wonderful. We move on. We find out, of course, his best friend is having an affair with Tracy Flick, Reese Witherspoon, and Dave Jim's best friend who's having an affair gets found out and gets fired. And really, that's kind of the insight. That's when the movie starts. Jim finds out that Tracy's running unopposed for class president. And Jim is the protagonist, for my money anyway. He's the protagonist. What he wants to do is stop Tracy Flick from being president. So that makes her a natural antagonist, and we're off and running. A number of things that I want to hear from all of you about that I think are pretty magnificent is that Payne runs several storylines. We meet Paul, the jock, popular guy, broke his leg. There's another voiceover. He does a voiceover moment. And Jim talks him into running for president. So again, Jim's objective, make sure Tracy doesn't get to be class president. It's not class president, it's student council president. Then we are about page 38, or about a little more than 30 minutes in. We meet Paul's sister Tammy, and she's in love. She's got a girlfriend. They're in love, and the girl dumps her. Tammy, who's not on screen that much, has a wonderful story arc. And thematically, she is tied into the bigger theme of the picture. The picture, in case you didn't get it, is really about revenge. Payne loves this world. Payne loves the world of real people doing real things that are petty and small and disrupting their lives in doing so. He loves playing in that world. It's not really reality-based drama so much because he puts it into hyperdrive. We've talked about Winter's Bone. That's reality-based drama. This is not. This is suspended reality. But Payne establishes the world, the pettiness of these characters. They're living in small towns, small worlds, and yet they do crazy things. Tracy's a beautiful character. She's also out for revenge. When she finds out that her lover is now seeing her brother, she decides to run for president, student council president. It's just, I think it's just really delicious. It's so good. We will find out in the course of the film. I'm jumping ahead, but we will find out that Tammy, although a minor character, does have an objective, and her objective is to get to Immaculate Heart School. She wants to go to the all-girls school. There's a wonderful moment when she sees the girls playing soccer. That's where she wants to be. Ultimately, she gets there, and by the third act, she finds love. I'm going to move ahead pretty quickly because I want to hear from all of you because it's such a unique film, such a unique voice. Great stuff with Jim Matthew Broderick. He has an affair with with Linda, who was Dave's ex-wife. Diane finds out. He gets thrown out. The bee sting thing on the eye is just his penance for behaving badly. And as we get, there's a great ticking clock. We know the vote's coming. The election's coming tomorrow. Here again is where some minor characters play big story points. There's a young man. What is his name? The young man is Larry, I want to say. Let me just look through my notes. Yeah, Larry and his buddy do the counting. And because Larry is meticulous, Larry says, wow, Tracy won by 1 vote. Jim says, gee, that's odd. Let me do the recount. He does the recount. Sure enough, she did. And then we know, because again, of course he's a flawed character. He throws 2 votes away. If Larry weren't such a meticulous guy about the counting of the votes, he wouldn't come back and say, no, there's a mistake. The ultimate test is when we go to the principal's office. Jim's called in, excuse me, and Larry's there and the principal's there, and they say, what's going on? And, you gotta love this beat. They only use him twice in the film, but he works. The maintenance man is there. He's found the missing balance. You know what I'm going to say? If you don't put that maintenance man in the first act, it won't play here. And for me, the fine point of that, the minutia of that is great storytelling. The audience, by the way, if you happen to see this film in a theater, the audience doesn't know, but they recognize, oh my God, there's the maintenance man, who didn't even have, I don't think even has any dialogue, doesn't have a word to say, but we remember him from the first act. He has the missing balance, and of course, Jim gets thrown out. He loses his job. He loses his wife. I don't know why I find that funny. He sacrificed everything, and then Payne does a wonderful wrap up. Paul goes off to college. He's going to be a frat boy. Life's going to be fine for him. He's going to kind of get what he deserves. Dave, the guy who in the front end had an affair and got fired, we also meet him briefly, and he's working in some store putting price tags on whatever it is. He kind of got what he deserved. Tracy, although she's unhappy but happy, she doesn't quite understand why she's not popular. But the beauty of it is she doesn't really care because she's going to Georgetown. And then, of course, there's Jim, who becomes a museum guide in New York. As you know, the final scene of the movie, he's in Washington, D.C., and he sees her from across the street. There's a beautiful moment here when he appears to maybe be taking the high road and say, I hope she's happy, but he's an anti-hero. He's still vengeful. He's still petty. He's still small. So he throws the cup of whatever it is on the back of the limousine and doesn't even stay for the fight, runs away. Again, this is Payne's world. He does it brilliantly in The Descendants, in Sideways, in Citizen Ruth. He just owns this material. Let's see if I can find my way back to you guys. There we are. He's a unique storyteller in as much as he has a very discernible, very distinct voice. He stays with it. It's not a voice that I think anybody can copy. I love the film. I love the smaller arcs of all the secondary characters and how they play. I think thematically, I also would say I'll even reach out and say that I think Payne is a very wise director. He seems to has a point of view about human nature. That we kind of wander through this life, and we are who we are, and ultimately we get what we deserve. We find our own destinies. Maybe that's a little too philosophical, but for my money, with all the Descendants, which is a great film, Sideways, a great film, they all play to the Alexander Payne theme of humanity and how wonderful it is and how wonderfully flawed it is. He's the kind of filmmaker that I think when you have time you should see all of his films. He can inform you as a storyteller and as a filmmaker how to take chances, how to be risky. He's certainly not a middle of the road guy. But Election, which I think is his second film, is a wonderful piece of work. And I'm curious to hear from my colleagues here. What do you guys think?
I have to point out one thing. It wasn't just any drink that he threw at the car. It was Pepsi.
Oh, because the Coke. Yeah.
Yeah, that's important.
Adam, very good. Yes, it is. Yeah. And what's her thing about Coke? Coke's number
Number
one.
one.
But they spend more money in advertising.
Right.
Tracy Flick. By the way, all these characters. I mean, talk about a character-driven piece. All of them are so. When she puts her hand up, I mean, who hasn't been in a classroom? And I'll just say it right out there. Debbie Elmore was the girl in my class. You were going to say, Debbie, put your fucking hand down. We know you know the answer, and we're tired of your shit. So,
You remember.
Debbie Elmore, if you're out there, I still hold a little bit of a grudge because as
So
Alexander
you're on
Payne will
his
tell
side.
you, I'm petty. I'm petty and small. But yeah, don't you love it when she puts her arm? Hasn't everybody been in a classroom with that? Or maybe, by the way, this is where you out yourself. Were you that Alexie? Because we know how smart you are.
Yeah.
Were you the girl with your hand in the air? Were you?
I had a few teachers who hated me. Not because of anything, genuinely not because of anything I did. One time I forgot my glasses, and so I was squinting at the board, and she said to me, Alexie, I can see you glaring at me. And I was like,
oh, God.
I forgot my glasses. And she's like, right. Like, at least own it. And then from then on, she hated me. So yes, I have been Tracy Flick, and I have sympathy for her.
Wow.
You stepped up. I applaud you for stepping up. Because by the way, we all know you were the smartest girl in your high school, but I just, you probably had your hand up in the air, right?
I did sometimes.
Yeah. Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah. We all know this. By the way, the principal, which is kind of a minor part, he is dead on. I mean, we you know that guy. Every word out of his mouth is a cliche, and yet that's who he is. Yeah.
Yeah. We follow the rules, but I don't like her, so we have to punish her somehow.
Who,
Yeah.
Tracy.
That's what
Penny.
the principal said.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yes, exactly.
They're all terrible.
They're all petty. They're all petty and small, and they're all vindictive.
There is one character in this script who is not vindictive.
Paul.
Yes, Paul. Don't you love?
Sweet
Because,
angel.
by the way, so here's another question I've got. I'm sorry, Avi, if I cut you out, but Alexander Payne does perhaps, as much as I'm crazy about him, is he? Here's my question: is he condescending? Is he a little condescending? Because Paul is, yes, he's the nicest person. He votes for Tracy, but he's dumb as a brick. So.
What were you gonna say?
I wasn't saying. I want to hear what you were saying.
I have a thought.
No, Avishai, what were you gonna say? I was gonna say anything great.
I feel like I'm sort of seeing it from the other end, where like no matter what, that character had to be dumb because he's the person who's being manipulated into running against Tracy and doesn't have his own wants. But Payne decides to make him a puppy dog, and he's so like he wouldn't hurt a fly, and he just wishes everybody the best, and he has no vindictiveness at all. And it would have been very easy for him to have been a jerk and to have been like an egoist and to just want to trample on people, because that would have made us maybe more on the side of Tracy, or like you could have done that. You could have manipulated us that way, and instead you've got a character who you just don't want to see get hurt.
But don't you think that's a great
I love it.
character choice? I mean, in terms of the design.
And
But it
there's a
makes
greater point
Matthew
also.
Broderick worse. It makes me hate him more because he's manipulating this stupid golden retriever into doing his bidding because he's a petty little jerk. And I hate him. I hate him so much. There's no redeeming quality to that man.
Oh my
That would make
God.
it. But wait, I agree with Alexie that Jim's a terrible person. But that's why I like Alexander Payne movies. His protagonists are all like they feel true because real people are vindictive. Real people are small. Real people
that's my
have no
point.
redeeming qualities so often, and we so rarely see that in a movie. If a lesser writer would have given Jim, well, yeah, he's sabotaging the girl's election, but he secretly has a heart of gold. No. He makes no buts about it. This guy is a terrible human.
And by the way, it's a proof by contradiction that your protagonist does not need to be likable.
No,
That's right.
Because it's the difference between sympathy and empathy, right? Like there's one character in this script that we really sympathize, like very, very, like this person is just likable, wouldn't hurt a fly, and it's the guy we really care the least about. And then everybody else, they have such foibles and are so easy to dislike, but we're so interested in them because we get to see why they care, and we get to hear their side of things. We get to understand their side of things. It's like this question here: if Jim doesn't have the arc, how could he be the protagonist? It's like,
good question.
If you have a flaw that doesn't correct, I feel like that's the point of your character. That has to be the point of your character. And here it is. What do you think?
Yeah, Nino, it's a really good question, and I'm glad you brought it up because a couple things. First of all, Payne, you know, as I said, Alexander Payne is bold and daring, and he takes risk, and he takes risk with this character. As Avi was saying, he takes risk. This is an unlikable guy. Why should we follow him? We follow him because he's so well designed. Now, he doesn't have an arc. He has the potential to have an arc if he learns something and is redeemed, and that's why he throws the Pepsi on the limousine in the last scene of the film, is because he's an anti-hero. So his arc is not an arc of correction, as is true with any anti-hero. The anti-hero has a moment when he can walk across the street and say to Tracy Flick, "You look like you've done well. I'm happy for you. I'm sorry for all I put you through. I'm glad your world has turned out." Now, by the way, to Adam's point, I love Alexander Payne for not taking that choice. I love
But here's
Alexander
the
Payne,
thing, John, I have
but
to
he
bring this
doesn't
up.
correct. Yeah,
John, we have to bring this up. This was an alternate ending. There was an
Right, there
original
was
ending
another
that was filmed, and
That's
this was
right.
the alternate because it bombed with audiences. And it was he
Yes.
was working, he never left Omaha, and he stayed at a car dealership.
So that's right.
And she came over to him, and they sort of have a weird resolution. I haven't seen it in years, but
Right. He
Yeah,
signed
that's-
your yearbook.
Yeah, and he
signs your
signs your yearbook, and so that's the alternative ending. But what they went with, which I think
It's
is
so much
true
better.
to the heart of the story, and it's true to the tone and style of this of the piece, is they went with the anti-hero, and it's interesting that the audience seeing the alternative ending, which is the happy tie a ribbon around it ending, the audience knew that was untrue. And they rejected it.
And
I
a
have
point-
some thoughts. Oh,
you
Yeah,
can go.
let's see.
I have some thoughts about anti-heroes.
Alexie, you didn't put your hand in. I'm kind of sorry. Yes, Alexie.
And then you just.
Yeah.
But if I do that, you won't
Great, do
call
that.
on me.
Alexie, put your hand in the air. Do it again.
Are you going to
please.
ask anybody else but me?
So Adam, what did you say?
So Lexi, tell us about anti-heroes.
So my theory for anti-heroes is that they're not actually written any different than regular protagonists. They're just given a positive flaw. Everything else is exactly the same, but their flaw is something positive. And so as they go through their arc, they're correcting their positive flaw. And at the end, so that's how I think.
That's The Godfather. Michael starts being a war hero, and he ends as his
monster.
father.
Yeah. So
Right.
in the beginning, his flaw is that he doesn't want to. What is that? He's honest. Isn't that what you said, Adam?
No,
And
it's
then
that he's honest with his wife specifically, and that he tells Kay, "That's my family. That's not me."
And then
And
And
then
the last
shuts
shot
the
of the
door.
movie is
He
he
lies to
lies
her.
and shuts the hair. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's how I think about anti-heroes, and I think it works. And then I think that if you have a character that just doesn't change, then that's just not necessarily.
Well, the only thing I would say to that, Alexi, is if the character has a negative flaw, not a positive, has a negative flaw, and we follow them to that point where they can say, "Oh my God, I can now make the adjustment and correct my flaw," and they choose not to, which is that certainly in a great film, many great films, but The Talented Mr. Ripley, that's that moment when the protagonist says, I have an option here, and I'm not gonna take it. Hurt Locker, I've talked about a number of times. Hurt Locker is that movie. Anyway, do we have any questions or?
I had
Yeah.
a thought. I had
Oh,
a thought
Avi.
about because it's interesting how the alternate ending that they shot, which is based in the book, where they reconcile, that leaves the story thematically in a very different place, right? Then that's about how you can escape the vicious cycle of revenge and its forgiveness. And what they ended up going with is he does there's no forgiveness. He's incapable of it. And then with that last shot at the end, with that one little girl in the museum, we see that he's doomed to repeat this pattern of behavior, and he's never going to get out of the rut. So that's a point I want to bring up. But the other thing I was thinking about is Tracy. She gets what she wants, but not what she needs, right?
Yes.
Because she very much wants to become the president and to go on to college with scholarships and to be, just be at the top of her class forever. But she feels lonely, and she talks about how she feels lonely, and even in college, like she doesn't get that sort of camaraderie that she's looking for of people on her level, and instead, and she doesn't change either, because she could change her behavior or her beliefs or her tactics or anything to kind of figure out, how do I solve that hole in myself? And instead, she simply decides not to.
Yeah, that's that wonderful moment when she.
Oh, sorry.
yeah,
You
I'll get back to yes. That's
yeah,
a
I
good
just put
question.
it up so you can see it later.
Okay,
Go
great.
ahead.
No, Avi, I mean it's a great point, because she says, I don't know why I'm not. She doesn't know. She's confounded by why am I not popular, and yet she goes, but I'm going to Georgetown. And
right. Well, she's in Georgetown at the end.
she's
Right?
in Georgetown. Yeah, she's yeah.
And it's just not, and it's not fun for her.
Yeah, but she's not out for fun.
Right.
Yeah. By the way, just one more thing about the ending and the alternative ending. When you're maybe when you finish that first draft, and hopefully, if you can, and I strongly recommend this, you do a table reading. There's this wonderful, what can happen, should happen, may happen, is that there are.
Oh, we lost John. He's coming back.
Oh, he's back.
You're back. You're back.
You've
Sorry,
shifted.
sorry. I'm not in the city. So can you hear me?
You're back.
Okay.
You're good to
So
go.
anyway, what I was saying was, finding when you hear your script for the first time read in a table reading, is it organic? And that's when it really starts to come to life. And it's wonderful to hear it. It's wonderful because you find out if there are moments that don't work, and you'll hear them. They'll be shrill. They'll be, oh my God, it's not of a piece. And that's what we're all aiming for, is to write the script, make this movie that's of a piece, that nothing sticks out and seems foreign. And that's why I think that ending, which we've discussed now, is organic to the movie. When you see that ending, it feels like, and for my money, is the only possible ending for this film. And that's what we're all heading for, is one cohesive piece of work.
Yeah.
So can we circle back to this? So I want John's thoughts on the voiceover.
Yeah, I'm gonna Adam, don't let me forget why you didn't think I'd like this.
Yeah, I'll remind you.
Voices are, by the way, I mean, he's got so many going here. So this is beautiful, because Alexander Payne is just basically saying, I'm going to do this my way. Voiceovers, traditionally in Hollywood, in the studio system and with networks, they are taboo. It's thought of as a cheat. It's thought of as, you don't know how to tell the story, so you're using voiceover for exposition. I think there are exceptions to this rule, but basically that's and producers, directors, studio executives, they have a real negative and a knee-jerk reaction to voiceovers, because they think if you knew how to tell a story, you wouldn't have to use voiceover. It's a cheat. Payne's right in their face. He's going, I'm going to do 1, 2, 3. I'm going to do a bunch of voiceovers because that's what I want to do, and he pulls it off. But
Just to piggyback on that for a second, Avishai, this also works because it's a design principle. It's consistently used the same way.
Yeah.
like it's not voiceover to like give information that we wouldn't know other. I mean, it is like it's like a diary entry. You have a diary entry into 4 of the main characters, and he uses it in a way to create conflict. Like using his sister's, like going deep with his sister, with Paul's sister and her backstory, and then going into Paul is important, you know. And I thought worked well in the film. It's not just like
but generally speaking, that's it's an
right. Or totally.
Yeah. So I have a couple thoughts also on why it works, and one of it is it's used less to deliver exposition and information and more to get us into the mindset of these characters. So that's one thing, and it's more about empathy and getting us to understand why they are doing what they're doing, but also they're consistently lying to themselves, and we're learning from those lies that they tell themselves what kind of people they are. Because what's that great line with Tracy where it's like, you might think that I just wanted a father figure because I never had one, but you'd be wrong. It's just that he was so strong and protective and there for me. Like every character has that. And that's how, that's like, even without voiceover, that's a solid way to get into characters. What lies do they tell themselves and the world about themselves versus how are they really? And this film is just full of that, and it's all in the voiceover. And I think that itself justifies the voiceover.
Yeah. And there's one other, yes, Alexie.
Wow, it's effective, isn't it?
You would know.
Yeah, I would. Just don't let me forget my glasses one day. It'll all be over.
Yeah.
No, but so to bring up. Oh, Avi, what is with the face? Did you see him squinting at me?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
He's angry. He's
glaring.
Yeah.
So back to Avi's point about voiceovers. I've heard that it can only help your script if you're using it to show something that could not be shown on screen. Like if you say something like "I like to run" and then we show you running, it's like how does that help anything? That's just like self-indulgent. You want to hear this character talk. But the fact that she said that thing about, you might think I was looking for a father figure, on top of, it added something to the scene. It wasn't something that otherwise would have come through.
Right. Yeah. And also that wonderful line from Paul, and I'd like to thank God for what I'm told is a very large penis. Like that's not something that tells you so much. And it's, you can't show that, but you're better off.
Or maybe you could, I don't know. But there's one other variable here, which is Alexander Payne directed the film. So when he and Jim Taylor wrote the script and they decided to go with voiceover, Payne, knowing he was going to direct it, said, "We're going with voiceover." What would happen typically in a situation, if you wrote the script with a lot of voiceover and it got to a director and the director said, "I'm interested in making it," you the writer would have meetings with the director, and the first question that would be asked is, "How do we get rid of these voiceovers?" Now, and you may convince the director that the voiceovers are necessary and they work and they should stay, but again, Payne, as director, had already signed off on them, and he wrote them into the script because he thought they were necessary. He thought they worked, which is it's different than writing a script and getting a director attached to it, and the director coming in with his or her set of notes.
There's a question here from
Dream Yogi.
Hey,
a different one.
Is that the one?
I was actually looking at a different one.
Oh, my bad.
What's this one?
And then we'll circle back to Avi's. So, Anthony, can you distinguish between the protagonist of a tragedy and an anti-hero with respect to dealing with flaws? I think that's interesting.
Wow, that's a good question. So, I for my money, the protagonist in a tragedy can still learn and change. The protagonist in a tragedy can go through Act 2, come to Act 3, and through the tragedy that he or she has experienced, and we see this a lot with their sacrifice. The tragedy might be in how greatly they sacrifice, and then they change. With the anti-hero, when he or she gets to that moment, and has gone through this tragic situation, and they're confronted with the choice. I can be better, I can be worse. They decide not to change. I think I've said this before, forgive me, but in film noir, it very seldom do the protagonists change. So I hope that answers that.
I
Anybody
think
else?
I have a take on this. It kind of is to what Alexie was talking about. It's sort of the nature of the arc, like whether or not it's like a protagonist whose flaw is a positive quality, and then they lose it. Because in my mind, The Godfather's a tragedy.
Yes,
Like
yes.
this good man becomes corrupted and becomes like his family, who he didn't want to be initially. Whereas I think of anti-heroes is more neutral in general. But I'm sure, like, these are all gray terms. Like, I think these are all descriptive terms for art, and interesting art is at like the crux of paradox. And what do you guys think?
I mean, I feel like at the end of a tragedy, you could have somebody say, "If only I hadn't been so blind.
Right.
If only I could go back and do it again." Whereas
King Lear, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Whereas an anti-hero ends the story not making that, not having that awareness, right? Like at the end of this, Matthew Broderick's character doesn't really have the awareness that he needs to not go through this again.
Right. He's not.
He just talks about, he says it was a blessing in disguise. It all worked out for me. Oh no, there's this girl and she's raising her hand and I'm not equipped.
I'm not going to call on her.
So here, let's go back to the question Avi wanted us to pull.
I wanted to jump into this because I feel like there's an important distinction to make. So the voiceovers are really just lies to throw the audience off. I think it's the opposite. They're not to throw the audience off. They're to reveal to the audience. Like, if somebody in your real life tells you, "Oh, I don't care about blank," but they say that over and over and over and over again, what does that tell you? It tells you that they really care about blank.
Right.
And so in this movie, every single character, by telling you what they would like you to believe, but in such a transparent way, that the opposite is true for each of them, and you come away knowing them better than they know themselves.
Yeah, that's yes. And voiceover, typically, it's just exposition. It's giving you information so that they can move more quickly through the film. So it's not necessarily lies.
John, I have a question for you.
Sure.
Have you ever used voiceover in a film?
Yeah. Yeah, I used voiceovers on the first script I ever sold, and I didn't really know what I was doing. But I used it to cheat, to get exposition and move the story along a little quicker. And then when I was getting ready, one of the last drafts of the script, because I'm a little bit compulsive, hold for laugh. So what I did was I went through the script and made sure that my voiceovers were happening within every 15 pages, no more. So I was laying them in to create a rhythm, which actually, as I'm saying that, it was, if you don't mind me saying so, it was a pretty smart thing to do, because it created a rhythm with the voiceovers. Because it said, voiceovers are a conceit of this, the way we're telling this story. And we're going to make sure that you're mindful of that by creating a rhythm with it, and that it almost is going to become another character in the movie. And frankly, I stumbled into that. And it worked with that script.
I actually have a relevant Alexander Payne anecdote. I was at a Q&A he was speaking at when he was releasing Descendants, the George Clooney movie.
Oh.
Not my favorite movie, but it was pretty good. But funnily enough, a student asked him, it was at UCLA, my friend was getting there. Anyway, a student asked him in the Q&A afterwards, where, you had a lot of exposition in the first 10 minutes of the movie. You probably shouldn't have he said it you probably shouldn't have opened your film with this voiceover exposition. And his response was very interesting. He said, well, sometimes you have to give the audience, their medicine, the exposition medicine, to get into the story. And that was literally
wow.
He could have.
By the way, what a gracious guy.
Yeah, he was.
My God.
Yeah.
God, he could have ended the Q&A right there.
Yeah. I mean, anyway.
That's funny. Let's see.
I once was that kid at AFI when Lawrence Kasdan came in to speak about body heat, and there's a clown in the, God, this is actually really embarrassing. I was at AFI and Lawrence Kasdan's in. He's talking about Body Heat, which is a great film with Kathleen Turner and Ted Danson, and it's a noir film. And there's this clown. There's a shot of this clown right in the middle of the movie, and the protagonist is driving, I think, and he sees this clown. And then the clown's never there again, and it doesn't pay off. So I, like an idiot, a little bit like kind of as unctuous and pretentious as this kid, I said, "Why is the clown in that movie?" God, what an asshole. Anyway, and Kasdan goes, "I've been asked that before, and I never answered it." The place went silent. All my buddies afterwards, all my friends were going, "Shit, man, what'd you do?" I said, "I don't know. I want to know about the clown. I don't know." Is that funny? Anyway.
Oh, man.
I've been asked that before, and I never answer it. Move on, baby.
Well, then, I mean, it was a good question. He's dodging it.
I never worked with Larry Kasdan. Huh?
You got him stumped.
Yeah.
I don't know. He hated my guts.
That's a great way to answer a question that you don't want to answer, though.
Yeah,
That's the note I'm gonna take away from that. Be like, I've heard that one a lot. And then
I've heard that one. Yeah.
It's like David Lynch saying something. It's like, elaborate on that. No.
Oh God.
Here. So here's a question about back to election. So what was the deal with the scene? Here we go. Monica asks, what was what was the deal with the scene where Jim saw Tracy on the face of his wife?
Oh yeah.
Like, what was that about?
What was that? By the way, I mean, that to me, and he also has seen the Linda, a woman, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, on the back of his wife's head. I mean, the fact that Alexander Payne decided to do that, which is inconsistent with the rest of the movie, and then I found it kind of startling that Tracy Flick says, "Fuck me, fuck me, fuck me."
It's not that inconsistent.
It's not?
The face sliding in on top was sort of an odd effect that isn't done in any other way, though.
That's what I'm saying.
Sure, but narratively it makes sense.
Huh?
Narratively, yeah.
Narratively it makes sense, but in terms of film craft and his tool set, he never used it before and he never used it again. But that's Alexander Payne, who's just going, "I'm going to do this." And he just jolts the audience. And I thought it worked, but I think it's shocking. And I
think the question was more about the narrative purpose of the scene. Like, some people were interpreting like that he had was sexually attracted to her, and that was a meaningful aspect of the story.
That's what I thought, and that's what I thought. I thought he was sexually attracted to Tracy Flick as well as the woman he is having an affair with, and yeah.
A big part of why he hates her is entirely not her fault. Like, it's just he's attracted to her. He has that image of her with his friend. He has those feelings, and because he can't act on that every day that she's there, it's a reminder of that, and he hates thinking about that, so he's punishing her for it. And
yup.
Yeah, and God, he's such a monster.
See, he's a piece of trash. Thank you, Avi.
Yeah, I don't think. Yeah, but he's so well written. We're willing to follow him.
Well, because he tells us why he does what he does, and to him it makes sense.
Yeah,
and I
trash.
I can count on maybe a few pairs of hands how many times I've watched a movie where the protagonist was truly was not a good person fundamentally, nor did they have the potential to really resolve that. And that's refreshing because every story is about somebody having a realization, everybody becoming a little warmer and fuzzier in life. And personally, I think that's kind of great.
You can learn from negative examples too.
And Adam, one of your favorite films, There Will Be Blood.
Oh yeah,
right?
Yeah.
So,
but for him, I feel like I don't think he didn't change. I think he's more of he became worse because he intentionally. Because he intentionally
you're right,
had the
but
relationship
we're willing to follow him.
And he throws that away.
Yeah,
he had something.
Zuckerberg and Social Network. I mean, he's not a good guy.
No.
But
No.
they're so compelling. They're so complex that we're willing to follow them.
Yeah, I mean, if the thesis of stories in general is here's how to be, and if you change the way that you believe or you act or strategize or talk to people or anything like that, you change that, you can change your circumstances. Here's how to make your life better. And every so often, it's good to have a story that's like, here's how not to be.
It's refreshing.
And here's what to do wrong that you should not. And this does it very well because so often you can watch that from the outside, right? You can watch it from the outside and see people screwing up and say, well, I'm not going to do that. And here they put you smack dab in the brains of all of these people. Or it's like you are right there with them. You are doing it with them. They are walking you through every little minutia of why they did what they did in the moment. And you can't deny that you would potentially do the same thing if you got a bee sting on the same day that you lost your wife and like everything that you had fell apart. And then this one kid that you just hate for reasons you cannot explain is doing so well. And in the moment you do, it just makes sense. But if you watch that from the outside, and there isn't that internal explanation, it's just a jerk.
Yeah.
And you don't learn from it.
And he is just a jerk.
He is just a jerk, but he's a jerk you can learn from.
Yeah, he's someone that you understand, which I guess is the point. Like, you can understand how he got from A to B. It doesn't feel like he's just being awful for the sake of being awful, but he is just awful. And, as much as it will upset John, there is no save the cat moment in this entire thing. He's never...
I hate that.
You know how much I hate that book.
I know.
By the way, it's just talking about Save the Cat is something that we like to rag on.
Thanks, Alexie. Yeah.
They go out of their way, I assume not intentionally, but I just think it's funny. There's this beat in Save the Cat called Theme Stated, in which a character says, well, Jim, it's important to have ethics and morals. And here in this movie, they kind of skirt that, where they bring up the question, but they never actually really answer it.
They never answer it, which is that's what makes this better, is they don't tie a bow on. They don't, it's unresolved, like life.
State the theme.
I really feel it's,
So I just thought it was like a statement that, like, somebody who's teaching morals and ethics to young minds is so immoral and unethical.
So corrupt. And by the way, that's life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The only character I really, really, really liked, just as a person, like I want to be friends with this person, is Tammy. And it's
Tammy, I love
like,
Tammy.
The stuff that she does that's sort of against like the rules of things, she's pretty open about it. I think she's like, the only thing that she really lies to herself about is her ability to be, like so-and-so is my soulmate, which is something that she'll grow up and have a more mature like understanding. Or not. but she could. But the stuff that she does in the film, it's like, yes, I am doing this to get back at my brother and this girl who I liked, who then destroyed me, and I don't care, and I am not into this. And she has a certain honesty to her about these things that you can just kind of like you can get on board with her. Everybody else is so lying to themselves.
Yeah, she
great. Also has great reversal moments. When she gets up and gives a speech that is kind of antithetical to what you would normally expect, and it works. And then when she takes the rap for pulling down the posters, which she knows she didn't do, those are great reversal moments and great character stuff, because they seem to be inconsistent, and yet they're so true to who she is that they're not inconsistent, and that's.
She's the smartest person in the movie.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And also, by the way, to go back to my point from a few minutes ago, she's the smartest point in the movie, which is why we know she's adopted.
So can we talk about
she is adopted, Avi. You're laughing.
Yeah, she is. They say it. And
I know it.
I was kind of wondering in the moment why he went out of his way to say, even though you're adopted.
I mean, you love that.
I couldn't figure that moment out. I was just like,
he's so dense.
I think it was something that didn't make it into the movie from the novel.
Oh, that was more of a factor in the novel.
Right. I feel like we lost out on Tammy characterization and like resolution to simplify the story.
We need a new version of this movie that's just Tammy. Everybody else can go.
By the way,
Really
that's not a bad idea. That's not a bad idea.
I'll do it.
So
got it.
can I bring up why I thought John wouldn't like this movie?
Oh yeah, I've been dying
Yeah.
to hear that. Sorry.
So I personally think the movie works and I really like it. It's just so his objective kind of is a little inconsistent in the film, in my view, because like my reading of the midpoint of the film was his affair. Like, what do you think his
And getting caught. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, and getting caught. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the midpoint is getting caught in the affair.
Getting caught in the affair.
I should have
like,
said that, but yes.
So
Yeah.
what was his tangible objective, in your opinion?
Oh man, that's great. So his tangible objective is not tangible, is intangible. It's to stop her from becoming president.
Right.
So his objective, and it's a little bit, it's very difficult because it's a little bit of a negative objective. Is I don't want you, you know. So it's a difficult, but he is actively pursuing stopping her. So that's
right.
why
I read it that way too. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Avi, that makes this a horror movie, according to your theory on horror objectives.
It kind of. It's actually kind of fun because thinking about all the stuff about the affair that he wants to have, I feel like that's almost a red herring. Like all of that exists to set up why he makes the choice he does at the end in the pursuit of his goal. Like that's all motivation, but the goal is stop. It's stop her. I don't even know if it's necessarily a negative goal, because to stop something, like you want something to not happen, but he wants to make it not happen.
And he wanted that boy to get
in horror,
and this is something he can't.
Because in horror, you don't necessarily want to make it not happen. You just want it to not happen.
You want to stop it.
I think you could also rephrase it as
stop, and here you want to stop it.
He just wanted Paul to win.
Yeah.
Which is popular, right?
And that makes more sense too, because I mean, if his only objective was to stop her from winning, then he would have done more to defend Tammy when she was threatening to destroy the entire government. He would have been like, okay, cool, now I have 2 horses in this race,
right.
2 people to take down this girl. But I think at that point, his objective was specifically Paul.
And the good news is, I mean, and he's active. He is active in trying to do that. Yeah.
I see a question right here from Emily that I think that
Hi, Emily.
Avi could take a stab at. A negative objective is difficult for a person to do or difficult to pull off in a story. It's like, is it hard to pull off a negative objective?
Yeah. Let me, Avi, can I just jump in, because I'll forget if I don't. Yeah.
Good.
So negative objective you don't want to do. You don't want to do. Here's why. You're saying you're giving the protagonist a don't want. And that makes it impossible to be active. So if it's a boy wants girl film story and boy decides he doesn't want girl, then he can be inert because he doesn't have to pursue. If it's a heist film and the guys don't want to break into the jewelry store and get the diamond, so they decide they don't want to, then they can drive on home and get a beer. So a negative objective means that they don't want. They've identified a goal, but they've decided they don't want it, and then your second act. We all know this act 2 is a killer. It's a long way to run, and if your protagonist is not active in regards to what they want, then and a negative objective means they don't want.
Yeah. So
Avi, did I interrupt you? I'm sorry.
You didn't interrupt me at all. John, it's your show.
No, it's our show. It's our
John show.
Yeah, great.
So my thought on negative goal is, I think you can do it, but number one, the stakes need to be incredibly high for on a personal level. But 2, that thing that you don't want needs to be coming at you like a freight train. If like John, you said like boy doesn't want a girl. Well, okay, so the obstacle-free version of that is sit around, girl doesn't come from. But what if it's an arranged marriage? and it's been forced, like, you're going to marry this girl, and so it's like, well, I have to now do something to not get this girl. Like, if it's coming for you, and if you do nothing, this thing that you don't want will happen. Then you have to step up and do something about it. And that doesn't necessarily lead to a new goal. Like, you could have a version of the story of, it's an arranged marriage, the girl's coming for me, so I need to flee the country, or I need to find a new person and convince my parents. Like, that could be the new goal, or you could just keep throwing things in the way of this freight train that's coming at you. Like, there was this movie I saw, I forget what it's called, but it's about a woman in the desert, and there's a zombie following her because there's a zombie apocalypse, and one of them has got her on her trail, and she just wants it to not get her. She has no way out of this desert. If she sits still, that zombie gets her.
Right.
She can keep walking, sure. She'll get tired. It won't. And it's a slow guy, but it's still coming after her. So it becomes a thing about, what can I do to put obstacles in the way of this thing that is coming at me?
Does that make you not active, though? That makes you pretty reactive.
But reactive can be active depending on your tactics of it, right? And depending on how hard it is to succeed at reacting to this thing, right? So in this case, let's say that it is a negative goal. I want Tracy to not win. You put Paul in there. Oh no, a Dukakis has entered the race and has shifted the balance towards Tracy. Like, things like that. Like, if there was a point where if Paul had sat still, or if Jim had sat still, where did Adam go?
He got tired of you. He said, "No more Avi."
Makes sense. It's like,
where did he go?
Lord of the Rings, positive goal.
Yeah, he went to watch Lord of the Rings again.
But yeah, I mean, like, there's a movie. John, are you familiar with the movie It Follows?
It Follows, no.
So it's a recent-ish horror movie. It's become something of a classic. And the concept of that movie is, there's a demon. If it will follow you, it will kill you. The only way to get rid of it is to have sex with somebody, and then it follows that person. But then once it kills that person, it's right back to following you. So you want to create sort of enough of a trail so that eventually. So in that film, our main character.
Is it a porn film or a horror film?
It's a horror film. It's very tastefully. It's really more focused on the mortality element of, no matter what you do, it's coming after you. But it could look like anything. It could look like anyone. Just be on the lookout if there's somebody who seems to be walking towards you. It could be it. So in that film, what I don't want is for this thing to get me. I got to push it off, and maybe that involves having sex with somebody. Oh no, now that person's dead, and I've gotten that person killed. Now it's coming for me.
Right.
I could drive across the country. It'll take a long time to walk, but it still will find me. You know, like that kind of.
Yeah, it's
happening.
Yeah, yeah. It's, by the way, one of the things, and going back a little bit to what Adam's question was. You know, will I? You know, is this your kind of film or not? I think it's really important to. By the way, I love these conversations. I think it's really important to have these conversations. And a lot of what we're doing, I hope, is saying, be aware of the kind of story that you're diving into. Be aware and ask questions. Ask the right questions so that you can have the correct answers. So if you're doing a film, to go back to this question, if you're doing a film with a negative objective, know going in that it's a very difficult thing to do, and then you've got a shot at it. But if you go in kind of willy-nilly and go, oh well, negative objective, I don't care, you should know going in, yes, can you do that? Do people pull it off? Did Terrence Malick do it in Hidden Lives? Hidden Lives is negative objective. Terrence Malick. But that's my point, really. And the reason, that students and Adam, I like your question, is people say, oh, you like that film? I love films that break story or break rules. I love them. But I'm also very aware that young filmmakers, storytellers, screenwriters starting out, if they're not cognizant of what these choices mean and how important they are and how they impact the story you're telling, and where, if you don't know what you're doing, the story can go can go haywire really fast. So I feel like it's, in some way it's my responsibility to say, be careful, be careful. Negative objective, can you do it? Yes, you can.
My two cents on
Understand
this.
the risks.
My cents on it is that if you're going to pick a negative objective, it has to sort of just create external consequences and stakes and raise the stakes. Like it, and that lends itself to a lot of horror stories. Like Avi brought up, there are lots of consequences and there are high stakes because of the situation. Usually, there are external consequences. Like the big problem that I'm sure a lot of film students fall into is like, well, he wants to be loved. In a sort of vague sense, you have like that's the problem. The problem isn't like, oh my God, she has to get out of the train car by midnight, or else she doesn't want to die because of that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and Adam, I mean, you're being a little bit facetious, but you hit it right on the head. The student will say to me, "Yeah, well, what's the objective? He wants to be loved," and I'll go, "Oh my God, no, that's the inner need." And because it's not tangible. You get that, right? I mean, that makes sense. Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know.
Totes. Let's see. So Carrie mentioned this question, which I kind of already answered in the comments, but I think it's a good one to talk about anyway, which is, couldn't you turn the goal in Avi's desert example into a positive goal if she wants to stay alive? And my thought with that is that the challenge there is that there's two issues, is that it's not specific because it has no end. Just staying alive is like ongoing. And then the other issue is that you've already achieved it when the film starts. You're already alive when the film starts. So if you did something like you have to live until midnight, then that becomes a tangible moment. If you can just get over the threshold, that's it. But yeah, if it's stay alive, then you've already done it.
Right. The why now is important. I feel like you can
Good,
take it.
Alexie. Like Tracy Flick, you're so small.
Yeah, I'm basically Tracy Flick.
How many lives are you going to destroy?
Look, it's destiny.
Yeah,
yeah.
How many?
First of all, my opinion, getting back to election for a second, is that Tracy is going to do the most evil in the world. Like, she is going to be one of those, politicians who ruins people's lives and doesn't really care about other people. She cares about her own destiny and her own sense of self, her own story at the expense of other people. Like, I think that Jim reads her right, but he's totally a horrible human being.
But does he read her right and then create her? Because, I mean, all these people are being horrible to her.
I think the key line to her is that, after graduation, I sort of never really thought about him. He had no real effect on her. She was going to do what she was going to do, and she's going to be the person he was a minimal person.
Or is that another lie? Like, I wasn't. Is that a lie? Like, I wasn't looking for my father figure?
I think that was formative for.
Fair enough, but I
get your point, though.
I do think that she is is going to be the person who hurts the most people in the world in that story.
She's already got blonde hair, so she could, if she put on orange makeup, she could be president.
Mm-hmm.
And really do some damage.
We're back to Cosmo Script, John. We're back to Cosmo Script here.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
It's funny. I listened to an interview recently with the writer-director of Attack the Block, which is a really fun sci-fi horror kind of.
With John Boyega.
Yeah, it was John Boyega's breakout film.
What's it called?
Attack the Block.
Attack the Block. It's a British sci-fi action where aliens attack a sort of housing project in the UK. And in the interview, the writer said something that I thought was really interesting, which is he wrote the draft, and then he did a pass on the draft for each character. Like, okay, let's say I'm seeing it through this character's perspective. Let me do a draft where I make sure that this person tracks the whole way through, like with their whole internal wants and needs and flaws. And Alexander Payne definitely did that here, because you could make a cut of this movie that centers any of these characters.
Yes, you could. Yes, he did. Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, they're all so beautifully designed. They all have their own arcs. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. By the way, about negative goal, it occurs to me you could take a positive goal and and phrase it like a negative goal if you wanted to. You know, the same like in Snowpiercer, they want to get to the front of the train. Well,
Yeah.
they want to stop being in the back of the train. So I feel like sometimes what we think are negative goals are sort of more positive than we give them credit for, just because of how we're framing them.
Well, I think that also, like, they want to not be in the back of the train. I'm going to be really annoying. Could also mean they want to be outside the train. It could also mean that they, like, it doesn't actually give them somewhere to drive towards
Right.
as much as saying front of the train.
Right, but at the same time, like, if you set it up strongly enough that there are two places in the world that you can exist, the back or the front, and they don't want to be in the back. You know, it's like what's that line from They Live? It's like, I am here to kick ass and chew bubblegum, and I'm all out of bubblegum. You know, you could frame it like that if you want.
What's that from?
It's from They Live. It's a John Carpenter classic. I highly recommend it to everybody in the world. It has a 7-minute fight scene that doesn't go anywhere until the end of it. Anyway, so, but the point being, I feel like sometimes a negative goal, sometimes a negative goal is framed as a positive goal, but really is a negative goal. And sometimes I think what we think are negative goals actually are positive goals.
I just think, like, in general, if you can articulate it as a positive goal,
Yes.
then it makes it easier to write a lot of times.
Yeah.
Because it's easier to build obstacles in between your protagonist and something specific than your protagonist and something charging at. Yeah, it's like something behind them, chasing them, rather than something in front of them that they're running to.
Or that you're trying to get past. Yes.
Yeah.
So it depends on what you're prioritizing. Are you prioritizing the goals or the stakes?
Both. And by the way, if you're not I'm trying to get everybody through the second act, and if you don't, the only reason for that you, is that fair to say? Anyway, the reason for an objective is to engage the protagonist. Otherwise, he or she is inert, and without engagement, we have nothing to follow. They have nothing to do. So it doesn't matter, if it's a diamond, if it's $1 million, if it's a boy, if it's being president of student council. We need to identify it so that they can be in pursuit.
Right. You need to force them to make tough choices.
That's it, and that's why objective. That's why I harp so much on objective. Is you can't get through the second act unless you've got one that's really substantial and the audience identifies with it, and the protagonist is passionate about it. And I've seen that's Norm. Adam, you do this really well. What's the thing? What is the thing in the second act that when I read scripts that most typically goes wrong? The protagonist is not in pursuit of an objective. Yeah. That's what when I read the scripts that the second act breaks up, falls apart, gets muddy. It's because the writer has lost sight of the protagonist's objective. That's it. That's all. 90% of the time. Adam, you and Alexie are reading a bunch of scripts now. Are you finding that?
Well, Adam, that reminds me of your but therefore, which is like, if you have an objective, it's easier to let your protagonist but therefore all the way there. And when you don't have a objective, you run into a lot of and then, and that's where your momentum.
Alexie, what is but therefore? Can you elaborate on but therefore, which I love?
That is Adam's thing. That is all Adam. He taught me, and now I'm using it.
Well, so if you have two story events, you never want to use and then as a connector between two story events. You want to use but or therefore, so the causality of events makes sense relative to the protagonist making choices.
That's right.
Oh, here, Adam. Here's another question meant just for you. How many character storylines are too many? Are there red flags to look out for when building storylines around your protagonist? Actually, this ties to John's B story, and it ties to Adam's complexity and depth, which I've spent way too much time editing, so that's how, how I know.
Can it be cut? If so, why?
Yeah.
I agree with Avi. I mean, at the end of the day, it depends on the story. It depends on what you're doing. If you have too many storylines, you're going to you have only so much real estate in your movie. You have only so much time to make a movie in a script, 120 pages, like if you are going to have 18 characters, you're not going to go deep with anybody, and your film could be very shallow. If you can collapse it into 8 and then really track one person in a story, like Inception works because they go deep with one character, and they have a lot of external characters still who perform functions in the story. But at the end of the day, the only character you have intimacy with is Cobb. So it depends on the story, and it's really a balancing act.
It reminds me of. Oh, go ahead.
No, yeah. What were you saying?
So it reminds me of Fleabag, where we do have other characters that are in there, but we never leave Fleabag's perspective. Like, we're never not seeing. I don't think there's ever a moment where we're not seeing it from her point of view, like where we don't see information that she doesn't have. I'm pretty sure. Someone should correct me if I'm wrong. But, and then in Inception, you have the, like, what is it? What's that word from English class? Omniscient, third person, omniscient, yeah. whatever it is.
Yeah, point of view.
Yeah. So, like, you are much more shallow in, I don't know. Anyway.
I don't know. I read it's a third limited.
Is it a third limited? Is that what I meant?
Because we still have access to
That's true.
And one of the questions you want to ask when you're creating these secondary characters and sorry, too many, not too many, whatever. They all should be somehow impacting the protagonist. They all that is kind of the traditional rule. I mean, one of the things that I love here in this film in Election is that Dave's the best friend. Dave's cheating with Tracy. Through Dave, we meet Linda.
Yeah.
So they're all so the Dave, Linda, then Linda, Jim affair is all, but Dave and Linda, they all impact Jim. All of the characters, perhaps with the exception, although she does too, I was going to say of Tammy. But anyway, that's the touch she does. Yes, she does. So the touchstone for this, in terms of can I add this character, is that character that you're adding, does it somehow impact the protagonist? And if it doesn't, be very careful about introducing that character.
Well, and then also, can you condense them? Because you can have a ton of characters that could impact the protagonist, but why do they need to be separate? Like, why do you need like 5 friends? Why can't you have 2?
Yes, that's exactly right. So, on one end of it, a film that I love and you've heard me talk about, which is Little Miss Sunshine, they all impact the protagonist. By the way, I do have to, my over-the-top kind of compulsiveness about story. I do think there's one detail in this in Election that is perhaps a mistake. Well, I mean, and again, but it's giving Diane and Jim a baby.
Why is that?
Because the baby is there. We see the crib. I mean, the crib, it's eerie because when he's the affair and all that, the crib's there, but it doesn't really, the infant doesn't really impact. Jim has no interaction with the child.
I disagree because of the one scene when he's walking into the house and he's rummaging through the fridge.
Oh shit, you're right. And he hears the baby crying, and then he walks in. Oh shit, you're right. You know what?
And also, in the scene where the crib, more than the baby, the crib is always present in the house. The crib when when Tracy's having sex with his friend, the crib is, when he's about to have sex with her, and then later when he is hooking up with
you're right.
All right.
That's a great point. That you're absolutely right. And so you're absolutely right. And yes, your first point is dead on. When he walks into the house and hears that baby, yeah, you're right. That's right. Yeah, so by the way, it does. Even though I was wrong, it does impact the protagonist because, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like every character should have a purpose, but every character should have a unique purpose. So if there are two characters and they both have a purpose, but their purpose is
Get rid of one of them.
so similar, get rid of one of them, or just mush them together. You know, make them a two-headed creature. Just put them together. But God, the number of scripts that I read that like the main character is given a tough choice, and then an outside character who is entirely irrelevant makes that choice instead. And
Yeah.
you know it. Because that's the danger of having a character that's irrelevant. It's not just that they're wasting time; it's that they could do things in the story that really your protagonist or the closer supporting character should be doing.
Yeah, I think it's such a good question. And Avi, I can't remember I think maybe you were in this class a couple of years ago, and this young lady, she said, talking about her protagonist, and she said the protagonist has 5 brothers and sisters. And so you can imagine at the end.
I remember this.
You remember this? And it was so funny. And so at the end, I said, "Why does she have 5 brothers and sisters?" And the young lady said, "Because I like ensembles."
God, I read
that is an answer.
It is an answer.
By the way, it is an answer, and it's better than Larry Kasdan's answer to me that I don't answer that question. But it's the wrong answer. By the way, and to that I would say, Little Women. You know, the sisters are there. They all serve a very specific purpose.
I love Little Women.
Oh, Little
That's a good
Women.
one.
She is just dead on. But you could see it. They're so distinct. They're so unique, and they are all serving their own purpose.
Hey,
their
John,
own story purpose.
has anybody in your classes have you ever asked a question about like, why does this in your script need to be here? Why is it this way? And they just responded, I refuse to answer.
I almost said fuck no, which I'm not going to say. But I'm not going to say that because that's inappropriate.
Avishai,
Right, that would be
you heard
wrong.
that? Has somebody said that to you?
By the way,
I have an anecdote.
I would not be. By the way, I would not. That would be pushing my button to do. What would you say? What was the answer? Why is that in there? I'm not going to tell you. Is that what they say?
I
Yeah,
refuse to
answer.
answer.
Yeah, that would be a okay. Yes, and we should talk after class. And by the way, I'm not. I think you guys will. I'm not a hard ass, but I have had. I have had students. I say, you know what? I think I respect your talent and your creativity,
But do you though?
No, and then
No.
I say, and I really think that you should drop this class.
The bigger the bigger the compliment, the less talented the person thinks you are.
There you go. So,
That's why John tells us we're awful.
Yeah, that's right, all the time. But I do have that. And so what I would say to that character after class, Avi, I would say, I think it'd be the best thing for you and me if you drop the class. And I can guarantee you, and I've said that a few times, and they never want to drop the class. I don't know why. I give them an out. I say, you could drop the class. I'll sign it. Just go get the drop sheet. I'll sign it. And they go, no, I don't want to drop the class. And
Because
I say,
they want
John, they need the credits.
At least he didn't say they need the easy credits.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna
They
get some
need
easy
the
credits.
credits.
I'm gonna need some easy credits. I'm gonna take a year-long feature writing course in which I have to write a 100-page screenplay.
Yeah, not an
Easy.
credit. Yeah, but I never can. I really don't know why, and I've never had it fail when I say I know you want to do it a different way than I do it, and I get it, and I dig that, and you're great. You should drop the class. They never drop. They won't drop
Because they want to teach you. They want you to go, my God, you are brilliant.
Yeah.
You
So they want to bring
changed
me
my
around.
mind.
They want to bring me around. Yeah. By the way,
For some reason, I don't know why, but screenwriters are very arrogant people. I don't know why. It's just my observation. Like everybody's just really strong sense of like, yeah, I'm a genius. And, I see the world in a different way. And, you just don't see it, man.
It's
always.
It's an astute observation, by the way.
John, I have an anecdote for you.
Oh, yeah.
I gave someone notes on a thing once.
I'm not included.
Are you there?
Maybe look at it.
You just turned into static
I'm
for
back,
a second.
I'm back.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. I'll disambiguate this one as much as possible. I once gave somebody notes on a thing, and they sent me a whole long email about why I was wrong on the notes. And one of the lines in the email was, and I quote, "You seem to be craving standard structure and storytelling."
And did you write back?
seem to really
yes,
like vanilla things, but that's just not not the way I do it.
I'm Rocky Road, baby. Yeah, I have no idea.
I mean, I love teaching. I love teaching. I love my students, but you do. Yes, some of them. By the way, screenwriters. What I love about screenwriters is that they are really smart. Generally speaking, they're really smart, and they know they're smart, because you don't want to be right. Nobody goes. I don't think anybody says, "I don't understand human nature," and I don't. Nobody says, "I understand human nature and I understand how to tell a story and I've got something to say, but I'm not very smart." Nobody does that. People say, "I understand human nature and I've got something to say, and God damn, I am really smart." It just is.
Can I respond to a comment?
But enough about Alexie, though.
Yeah. Oh wait, no, it's this one. This one?
So Monica, yeah, John and I actually had this conversation 2 months ago, where I was saying, like, I know so many actors, and my experience is that, some of the smartest, most thoughtful, intelligent people I know are actors, and that's my experience. And for some reason, everyone I know who, some of my best friends are actors. Maybe this is a theater actor thing, I don't know, but like, so many people get upset when I say that, like, "Oh, actors are the worst. Oh my God, how could you even think that?" I don't know. This has been my experience. I love actors. I think they're wonderful. I have never acted in my life. I do not have the talent. I admire them.
By the way, I think it's a great quality to have to love actors, and for a director, it's a great quality to have to understand and be empathetic with actors, because you got to work with them, and if you understand them, that's great. But you know what Hitchcock said? They're cattle.
He did say that, didn't he?
Yes.
And some of the
Which is confusing because he was such a good person,
Oh my God. But you have to say, some of the acting in his movies is really rough.
Yeah.
Man, I think they, like, the cast pulled a prank on him at one point where they brought like cattle stalls to the set with like the names of actors and dangling around the necks of cows, just to mess with him. I have to look into that, but I read that somewhere.
I read that too.
There we go.
You told me.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, that they put cows on the set with the names of the actors on them.
Ooh.
Oh, that's great. That's great. What was the classic one with Cary Grant or whatever, where he was asking, "What's my motivation?" Your motivation's your paycheck. Like, what's my motivation for the scene? And he said, "Your paycheck."
Yeah.
Man,
that's tough.
So should we go ahead and should we real quick, and people can stick around and we'll keep chatting, but do we want to go ahead and announce what next week's thing is?
I'm so worried that everybody is going to just this is mine, right? This is classic.
Yep.
You know how much
this
I
is
love
all
this
you.
film. I love this film so much. But
what are we doing?
Well, by the way, so I should say, you can probably tell I'm away. I'm out of town. I'm on vacation, and my wife and my daughters are here, and so they said, "Let's watch a film." Last night they said, "Let's watch a film," and they said, "Dad, you don't get to pick." So God. I'm like, "Wow, really?" And I might have chosen The Third Man, but they're like, they've lived with me all their lives, and they're like, "Oh God." And
well, hey, in their defense, you did choose Wild in my feature class.
That was pushed on me a little bit, you have to admit. But anyway, our film, that's a long way of saying our film for next week is The Third Man.
The Third Man.
I actually love this film.
I love it.
I love this film so much.
I have a gut feeling I won't, but that's okay.
It's a good film, Alexie.
Oh, it's a brilliant. I mean, it's genius. It's genius. It's brilliant. It's gorgeous. And there are scenes in this film that you want to watch over and over and over again.
Oh my God!
And anyway, I'll shut up.
Huh? I personally, the reason I love this movie is that it's one of the rare examples of Orson Welles giving a great performance, and he's not directing.
Yeah, and he's somewhat restrained.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah,
he steals the show when he shows up.
Yeah, no,
I don't think Orson Welles has never not dominated the room in any room he was ever walking.
Yeah. But and since you're about well, we'll
No
talk about it next
spoilers.
week. No spoilers. That's
no
right. You're right.
spoilers.
Thank you. You're right. Yeah.
And we
So the third man.
Great
Yeah,
film.
Carol Reed.
and we do have people asking about if there's ever going to be another pitch week, which is something that we need to.
Oh, what? Should we do that the week after?
Um.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'll
I'd
have
love
to.
doing. Huh?
The way that I'm going to have to send out an email to everybody
What?
on the coffee class email list, and if you want to submit to do a pitch, then you can fill out a form that I'll send out so that we can make sure that everything's good to go, and then we'll show you how to get on. But I will send out an email to the coffee class list this weekend with a survey things you can,
Great.
if you want to
Great
do
idea.
it.
Great idea.
And yeah, does it need to be a feature, John?
No, it can be a pilot. Can be. I think it can be anything. I mean,
Okay.
I'm starting to become a bigger and bigger fan of podcasts and webisodes because it's a way to create content that's not that you can actually execute. You can actually create the content and not have to spend a fortune and begin to design a career for yourself. If you do a great web series or podcast, you can. So anyway, yes.
Hey,
anything.
John. How great is Steal the Stars?
Steal the Stars is fantastic.
It's
fantastic.
wonderful, isn't it?
Fantastic.
What is that?
It's a podcast. John can say it.
No, you say it. You say it.
It's a science fiction podcast. It's someone who works at an Area 51 type site, and I feel like saying more would be a spoiler. I don't know.
I'm going to check this out because I don't know what this is.
You know what
Yeah.
I could do? What I could do in a couple of weeks, speaking of podcast, I could bring in Jack Resnick. Jack is a friend of mine who's got a podcast that's going, and it's called It's called The Room. I think it's called The Room. No, it's called The Group. It's called The Group.
Good.
And it's group. What? Oh, The Room's a movie. Yeah. No,
Yep.
so it's called The Group, and it's group therapy. So it's just these. So you can imagine, it's very compelling. It's very compelling drama. It's funny too, but it's a bunch of people sitting in a room and interacting with each other. So you can see it's very inexpensive to make. And it's taken off. This thing, The Group is starting to be a big hit. And I talked to Jack a couple days ago. He's somebody I could have come in and talk about how they created that, how they came up with it, and the evolution of that. So
Cool.
But anyway, we should do another pitch. I love Pitch Week. I think it's a great idea.
So can we talk about what exactly would this look like? What would Pitch Week be? Because last week it was just, Alexie and I were talking about our experiences in film, but this sounds different.
Well, no, you and I both did pitch. We did pitch.
Right.
So I mean, I think that if we did it, it would probably be that we'd have to decide how many people, and Adam always likes to do a film anyway. So we could do the front half of that week being Mad Max, and then the back half pitches.
Here's my, I have students pitching class all the time. We could, if we didn't do a film, if we just did pitches, we could do about 3. We do about 3 pitches with them pitch. By the way, I'm just thinking out loud. Your pitch can be no longer than 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And then for us to discuss it. The reason this is very helpful is that for everybody in the room, even if you're not pitching, to hear the pitch and then to analytically break it, talk about it, what works, what didn't work, choices you might make. But we would, I believe we could do 3 in a one coffee class, and I think it's
Oh, Theo is right. Adam did the pitch last time.
What?
Yeah,
oh, Adam. Oh, yeah. We
Theo
had Adam.
tattled.
We should just do an all Adam episode.
Yes, just Adam.
I don't know. I
pitches
felt like
on
the inception was hard. It was hard to do that by myself. I felt like I kind of bombed a little bit, but
Oh, come on, that was
Yeah.
great.
You
was hard.
got it. You got it.
was
You
hard.
got your
Great.
momentum. But
Thanks.
so yeah, well, whatever it is, we will figure out internally, and I will send out an email,
Yeah.
and I will send out a schedule for this month, including all the films. Mad Max is coming out at some point, so
I'd love to do that.
prepare for
That'd be
that.
so fun.
Okay.
So yeah,
Okay, the third man next week.
Yep.
Thank you all. That's fun.
So be sure that you're signed up for Coffee Class emails in the description if you want to get the info about Coffee Class.
Okay.
Cool.
One last thing. Alexie, I sent you an email. What's the Seth Rogen film? Did you get that?
Is that the one where you want me to share it with people?
Yeah.
I can share it with people. I was like,
Yeah.
hey, John, do you want to send it or should I? And then I never heard from you. But
Okay.
not to
So
call
what's
you
that?
out on public. But
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah. Too
Yeah.
late now. Why don't you raise your hand? Yes, Alexie. So yeah, there's a piece in, I think, the New Yorker. Where did I find that, Alexie?
I think it was the New York Times. I thought.
Oh, New York Times. The New York
Something
Times.
about New York.
Yeah. Oh, I know what it was. Here it is, and we'll let everybody go. Sorry to hold you up, but there was a short story that was written and published in the New Yorker.
I read it.
And did you read it? Okay. And then then it got picked up, it got optioned, it got bought, they wrote the script, and now it's coming out. Seth Rogen. It's called Pickle.
An American Pickle.
An American Pickle. It's a great example of high concept story. It's a great example of why you as writers should be reading a lot, because and Avishai, I'm going to defer to you now. When you read the story, did you know it was a movie immediately? Wait, I'm losing you a little bit.
Oh no.
In the moment, I was just reading it and really into what was going to happen next to the story. I wasn't even thinking about it as a movie, but it makes perfect sense.
Yeah, you know, when you read this New York Times piece, it's the movie waiting to happen, and clearly the producers read it and called and bought the rights. And so anyway, and it's also a great example of high concept, which we should talk about more when we have time.
So I will send out all of that.
Okay, thanks.
Cool.
Thank you.
All right, let's end the call. Let's do it.
All right. Bye.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Bye, everybody. Bye.